Select a journey.
Hello and welcome to part 4 of the Game Nexus Gauntlet Legends complete arcade playthrough.
You are now entering City Ruins.
And as I'd mentioned in all my other videos, this is actually being played on the original arcade hardware, which is the Atari Vegas 777 hardware, which this game, if you did not know, was released in 1998 on this hardware. I probably mentioned it in just the other 3 videos, but I'll make mention of it again. This game runs a 3-board set, which is the main board, which has your like CPU and everything in it, and the main boot ROM in it. Then you have your sound I/O board, which is the place where the actual JAMA connects. It has the basically the key ROM and the sound ROM, and then that's also where the hard drive connects to power. But the hard drive actually connects to IDE on the main board. And then finally, connected to the other side of the main board is the video card, which is a standard PCI video card, which is basically a 3D Effects Voodoo card based off of the Voodoo 2. Now this is your like pyramid/desert area. All the areas kind of have a general theme, as you've seen from these videos. This has more of like a ancient Egypt type thing going on, whereas the Castle Stronghold was a more medieval type thing. Then of course the Mountain Kingdom was more of just a I would call it more of just a basically like a goblin fantasy type thing. It really didn't seem to have much of a theme. And of course the forest had all your weird forest creatures and stuff. So yeah, it was a nice variety of stages here in Gauntlet Legends, with this one being the last. And I definitely love these power-ups. That has to be one of the best parts of the game. And now, as you could saw, that part was one of those areas where you would need to have another player in order to actually get up to that part. So if you had 2 players, you could actually let one player cross the bridge and get up whatever you would be able to get right there. And the only problem with some of these stages, they can be a little bit like mazes, which you will see later on in this playthrough, which is about around late 20s, early 30s in the minutes. I actually ended up getting lost because, as I mentioned in all my other videos, in this playthrough I wanted to get all of the rune stones, but the problem was I was in the last stage and I was lacking 1 rune stone, so I couldn't find my way around, and I just ended up more or less running around for about 20 minutes. But just like I like to, I've taken that about 20-minute thing, sped it up about 10 times the speed, and it's only about 2 minutes long. So you'll see me running around for a bit, and I'm sure I'll probably tell you what I was like thinking at that moment. And of course, these are your small enemies that you just saw me squish, were the little snakes that come out of the jars. Since as I had mentioned in my other videos, all of the levels tend to have their own small enemy, their own type of like goblins, like you see these guys that are attacking me. And of course the actual troll or golem here is a bit different. He's more of like a sand golem in this level.
That was an heroic effort.
And the announcer always thinks you did a really heroic effort, which is it kind of feels a bit more epic when you're on an arcade setting and the guy says that and everyone hears that and they're like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. And that's the one good thing that really happens sometimes. Is like you'll be just shooting your bow and arrow or whatever your character does, and one of the actual hits will just happen to hit that secret wall, so you can just find something secret or just continue along with what you need to do. And I just noticed there that I actually had missed a key. Because there was a key if I had gone around the corner again, and I didn't get it at all. It's just funny sometimes you'll watch some of this footage like after the fact, even like when I'm recording my commentary here, and not realize when I was over there was a key, and then it just looks like I just neglected to get it. But it was one of those cases where I just did not see the key at all. And now you might see that the Atari Vegas hardware sometimes gets called the Midway Vegas hardware, but I can assure you it is the same hardware. It's just that, like, when Midway had the license to release games, they tend to call it Midway hardware, Midway Vegas, and then when Atari had the license to release the game, they called it Atari Vegas, but it is the same piece of hardware. It would kind of be in the vein of, let's say, when Capcom releases a game for Sega Naomi, and they called it Capcom Naomi because they were releasing their game on it. It'd be kind of the same thing. This is like your water-flooded area. I always see any of these areas when you have to walk through water, and it always makes me think of like a sewer level of a game where your character is kind of like at least ankle to knee deep in water. And if you've ever like walked in either some low-lying water from let's say a flood, or if you've like been in like a nasty sewer area or anything, you know that it's not exactly fun if you're like walking in your shoes or your sneakers or something, and you're basically like knee-deep in water, and that's not exactly the most fun thing. And I can remember when I first started playing this game, those kamikaze guys would always get me like just about every time.
10 runestones have been found.
And of course, I could tell the one part like right there where I actually ended up seeing the runestone, which more or less happened to me looking at the video here, that the runestone kind of blended in with the background there, but then when you kind of see its rotation, like it's spinning around there, you're like, oh wow, look, there's the runestone. And thankfully, it's one of those that you didn't have to like really go too crazy trying to find. And then, of course, at this point, I just want to get to the exit, since other than getting more gold and more experience, at this point, there's just absolutely no reason to play this level anymore. And you'll notice that's kind of how it indicates that there's a secret wall, is it'll be all like cracked and stuff like that, and that's how you'll know that you can break through that wall. And of course, that's the end of the level, so it shows me all my kills and everything like usual.
Buy power-ups.
And I don't know if I've made mention of this in any other videos, but the next version will be, the next video will be the final video of this playthrough. As basically what the final video will encompass is the Altar of Scorn and the final area, which I believe is called the Underworld. And the thing is, you don't get to that final area unless you've collected all 12 runestones. Because what would happen is, let's say you defeated Scorn after you went through his whole gauntlet, you would just basically be sent back to find more runestones so you can truly vanquish your foe, which is what happened to me on my first playthrough of this when I was in the arcade on that cruise ship back in like 2001. And now the thing I like about like some of this music is, especially in this level, it's not really all that much, but it kind of sets that atmosphere. And the good thing is it wasn't too loud, so I could hear that kamikaze guy screaming. And of course, he wasn't too close to me, which is really the good thing, but there is the occasion where you will not see the kamikaze guy and he will just get you. Because, you know, with any game where there's a character who kind of just runs at you and attacks, even the best players will admit there's that time where the said enemy catches them by surprise. Like, one of the ones I always think of is in Gears of War. A lot of times, like, if you don't know what game I'm talking about, Gears of War was a game released in on Xbox 360. It's a third-person over-the-shoulder shooter, and there are these characters that tend to run up at you called wretches. And on occasion, your partner Dom will just scream wretches, and you'll know they're coming. But the problem is there are actually some times where he doesn't say that, and like I'll look at Dom and I'll be like, yeah, where were you that time? Because like there's so many times he'll like scream it like well in advance, but then all of a sudden he doesn't, and then they just kind of take you by surprise.
11 runestones have been found.
And this is one of those that I can remember looking at one of the FAQs and thinking to myself, oh, so you hit 4 things and then the runestones in the middle. Now, mind you, a lot of these FAQs, the biggest problem with them is they assume that you're going to be reading and playing along with the FAQ, so they don't give you like a full map and like put a big X where the runestone is. So more or less what I did in a lot of times I'm playing here, since this was all done in like one long epic run one night, what I had done was a lot of the runestones that I really didn't know where they were, I would look at the FAQ and read the part where it talks about the runestone, because a lot of times it'll say something like that, like it'll say, there are these 4 buttons, you press all 4 buttons and then the runestone's in the middle. But the problem is some of them weren't as easy as that, and then of course some of them were just like very simple. Like there was that one in the Castle Stronghold where you just take an alternate path and you find the runestone, and it's very easy. But then there's others, like the one later in this, where I had like a lot of trouble finding it. Now this is one of those kind of maze-like levels where you basically are activating these things and they're going up and down. It's not too bad. I'm just very glad that there wasn't a like runestone down on a platform and you had to figure out how to raise the platform up. That would have been really annoying, especially if, like, let's say the button wasn't right next to the runestone. Then that would have like really made the level a chore, if you will. This looks like me being a little bit lost here, trying to figure out what to do. And I always hate that when, like, I can't find my way, and then the hazards end up getting me. It's one of those things, kind of like the good old adding insult to injury, where you're already annoyed about, like, you can't find where you're going, and then all of a sudden, like, a saw blade or a spike comes out of the ground, and that actually just hits you even more, and you're like, yeah, I just want to find where to go now, that's all. And I know I've said it every video, and I'll say it again. For a game released in 1998, which, upon making this video, that's just a few years under 20, this game still looks great to this day, because as of this, actually as of this month, because this game came out in October of 1998, so as of this month, this game would be 17 years old. And it still looks really great, if you ask me. Some of the console versions, such as the original PlayStation version, haven't aged as well, because they had to really downgrade the graphics quite a bit, because, of course, the PlayStation didn't have the horsepower of the 3D effects set that this game runs on. Now, mind you, it was my first, like, home version of the game, and I can easily say it was very serviceable, but it wasn't, let's say, as good-looking as this. And I think some of the console versions, they actually changed some of the levels. I don't think they changed them for size, because the console couldn't display the actual, larger levels like we have here, or if it was just like a creative choice where they decided to just make them smaller because they figured that's what a console audience would like. But it's one of those things with me, when it comes to a game that's ported from the arcade, I'd like them to keep at least the levels that were in the arcade version as close to the arcade as they could. And if there's going to be like an arranged mode, like make it an option. Don't make it the only like option you have. Like for instance, on a remake for the PlayStation Portable called Mega Man Powered Up. They actually have like an original mode, which is exactly like the NES game. You end up playing the Mega Man, or of course the If You're Japan, Rockman levels that you would know. Or of course you could choose the arranged mode, which they take all the Robot Masters and basically build new levels from what is already there. So it's not like the levels look completely different. It's that the actual let's say the actual like platforms you jump on have the exact same art. Now, if you're wondering why that happened there, I didn't realize those were actually the red barrels for this level. So I more or less was like, oh wow, look, a barrel. There's probably an item there, and then I opened it up. So that's why I kind of got blown up there. But yeah, what I was saying was, I like it when you can have your arrange mode and you're like, basically exactly like the arcade game mode. Instead of having to have, these are your console levels. This is all you can get unless you go and buy the arcade hardware. Which, to my knowledge, none of the actual console versions are like, at least in the levels that exist in both versions, are exactly the same as the arcade version. And there's me getting a little bit turned around. Because the pyramid topography here is a little bit strange, so I just kind of went up one path and down another path, and I got back to the beginning again. Now this is another one of those levels. The music is just a very simple thing, with just some like beat in the background and then some like instrumental, but it kind of sets the mood of this level. Like, you're lost in this pyramid with all these crazy enemies trying to get you. You just have to find your way through. It kind of makes it have that like mystical feeling to it. And I can remember when I first saw that pillar of light that you see there, I thought that like if there was a rune stone in this level, that's where it would be, because I could remember in other games where they'd have one of those like light pillar type things, and it'd be like, that's where you'd find the big thing you were looking for. But the problem is, whenever they have something like that that's like so terribly obvious, it's not obvious how to get in there. So it'll be like, either that shield will be like a barrier trying to prevent you from getting in, or simply enough, it'll be like upraised on a platform and there's no stairs to get up there. A lot of games kind of use that whole gimmick, but apparently in this game it didn't do it at all. I guess they just used it as a background element for the level, because really you don't have to actually go in there, because if you saw when I walked over there, all it was a pillar of light, and it just led down to the lava. So even if you were able to get down there, you wouldn't be able to go down there without dying. And the funny part about that is, what that makes me think of is falling in lava and dying. Makes me think of the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom game. Because I could remember so many times Indy would just fall into the lava and then just kind of melt into it. And I always thought that was funny. And now this wall here baffled me a lot in this level. I could just not figure out what I was to do here. Because when I went up to it, I could actually hear there's enemies behind it. So there's probably something behind there, like some sort of secret. But, of course, just like a lot of the cryptic stuff in this game, it's like a switch that you have to switch in order to find it. I believe I may get a little bit lost in this, because I do remember not being able to find some stuff in this level. But it's not nearly as bad as what happened in the final level of this. Which, as I said, I was literally lost for 20 minutes. Although, honestly, that could be this level, because I think it actually is this level that I get lost. I get to the end and then I just get absolutely lost. And now that, you gotta agree with me, that did not look like a incline. It looked like a sheer rock cliff that you could not go up at all. And actually, it is this level that I end up getting lost in. so you'll be seeing that in just a little while here. You'll see, like, after I basically clear this area, it'll kind of go in, like, super fast motion play. And there, of course, are your lobbers. They're just the regular guys. And it's always good to fight one of these enemies when you have a lot of room to back up, so if you can't just, like, finish him off right away, you don't have to waste all your health to kill him.
Such bravery.
Yes, that is such a heroic effort, and he's never seen such bravery. That's one thing you can always remember about this guy.
Green Archer needs food. Green Archer needs food badly.
Now, the good thing is he usually will catch when you need food, so usually, I'm not saying all the time, because there was one time when I was playing Dark Legacy, I think I was fighting one of the bosses, and he did not catch me with the whole Green Archer needs food, so I did legitimately die at that boss. But of course, the good thing is it gives you a whole 2 times to continue, so it's not like you lose the spot in the game you were just because you died. And the biggest thing that's bad about these levels is you will find an exit in the level, and it won't be the actual... It'll be the exit for the rune stone, so you will not get your rune stone if you just go through the first exit you see a lot of times. And one thing, like, when you're looking at these graphics that you can tell, like, it has a much better graphics quality than a lot of stuff, is that it will, it'll constantly display basically the geometry as it is, whereas a lot of game consoles of the time, or even before this game came out, they would, like, display this level. You get close to the wall, and part of the wall would start to disappear, because the actual console or system is actually just trying to save a bit of, like, let's say graphics memory or system memory in order to basically be able to keep the game rendered at its current rate. Whereas with the Vegas hardware, you'll just never see that happen, because the way that this game is made, it's made the best so it doesn't do that, because that's one thing you'll really notice in a lot of this gameplay that I've done here, is that the geometry doesn't randomly disappear like it did in some of the console versions, because, you know, they have to basically port a game made for a specific piece of hardware with some limitations. And that's another one of those areas that you can only get to if you have 2 players. But you'll see a little bit later, it's nothing that needs to be worried about. And that's one thing I have to say is a bit strange about this level, is you'll think that you defeated all the enemies, and then all of a sudden you'll find these pockets of enemies not knowing where they came from. It'll almost be like you'll think that you destroyed the whole level, and then a bunch of enemies just kind of like randomly appears. Not to say that their generators have just started making new enemies, it's just that this is just such a big and vast level, and of course there's your wrong way exit, so you don't want to go there if you don't want to miss out on the runestone. Now it looks like I have the X-ray glasses right now, so I was able to see through that barrel that it was actually a magic potion. And the cool part about that is if there's a specific color magic potion you actually want, you can actually wait for it to show up and then not have to worry about getting the wrong color. Although in most occurrences, the magic potions kind of have the same effect. It's not like a green magic potion will kill less enemies or something. It kind of has the same area effect.
That was an heroic effort.
And of course, if we go this way, then we will get to the rest of the level, as opposed to leaving at the premature exit, if you will. So if you're just trying to basically power through the levels, you might want to take that exit, but not so much with the finding all the rune stones. And at least this time I actually noticed that it was a explosive barrel and did not just blindly shoot it. Since I can honestly tell you, I don't recall all that many of those barrels in the early stages. And one thing you'll notice is we're on the next to last level, and the unique enemy for the desert area has not even shown up yet. Which, if you recall correctly, usually it's like the second or third level where this enemy shows up, but this one, it just takes till the last level before the boss for the actual enemy to show up.
Has gained a level.
And it's especially good that he says, like, what color and what character you are, because it can get really confusing if you were to just say Archer gained a level, because let's say the blue guy's an Archer 2 or the red guy's an Archer 2, so it actually really does help that he specifies what color the actual character who gained the level was. And of course, the actual, this character has gained a level has a border of the appropriate color. Which, a lot of games that came after this actually
needs food.
Actually did that same scenario where it would kind of color code all messages basically talking about a certain player. And that's one thing you won't see on your older consoles, is you can see the distant geometry there, even though it's like really far away. And here comes my play the game really fast here. Basically what you're seeing here is me playing and not getting anywhere because I'm just going around in circles. And this might be the part where at one point in this level, I end up even summoning in the yellow character, which I believe is player 1, in order to basically get on that bridge there, which I could not explore before. Because, as I'd mentioned earlier, if it's one of those bridges that you can't explore as a single character, only 2 players can. And unfortunately, I don't think I ever end up getting behind that wall there. And yeah, you'll see me, I'm just like going all around here, all around the level. If you really want to, you can slow down this video so you can see what I'm doing in some of these places. But I can tell you, as I've like skimmed through a little bit of this footage, it's honestly not all that interesting, except for the one part where I summoned the second character, which should be in a little while here. I think I was like almost halfway through where I summoned the yellow wizard, since at the time, as I was saying, I only had the one controller connected to Green Archer, and there's nothing hooked up to player 1 controls, so more or less, when you see me do the summoning player 1 in, which I think is going to happen like right now, yeah, I've just inserted a credit, I'm basically just shorting each of the buttons for player 1 to actually press the buttons to make player 1 be in here. And what you'll see in a minute here, I'm just going to actually push the character once I get him moving here. I just pushed him out of the way so I could get him on something that would just kill him. And then, because that didn't actually help my problem here, so that floor hazard ended up killing player 2, so I could just go around and search around some more. If you slow down in this video, you'll probably see what it was, but somehow there was just some area in this level that I just honestly could not find at all. And I think I even like had stopped and read some FAQs and everything, and I just could not find where I was going. As I said, what you're basically seeing is a little bit over, and that little thing you just saw a couple seconds ago, I just found an area where there's a couple snakes and a magic potion, but as I said, what you just saw there was about 20 minutes of me aimlessly running around, not being able to find my way. But finally I found this little part here where I can get down here and finally get the final runestone. And I believe when he says it, he actually says all 12 runestones have been found. Because that finishes having to find any more runestones, so in the next level, there's no reason to really care at all about looking for runestones.
Follow arrows. 12 runestones have been found.
Okay, so he just says 12, he doesn't say all 12. I could remember thinking to myself right now, oh good, I finally found all 12 runestones, so regardless of what I do now, this game will have the true ending and I won't have to just get thrown back into the fray after defeating Scorn once again. Since, as I've mentioned numerous times, I've seen that ending and, there is no ending, basically. Now, what there is here is one more level, and then the ending boss, which I believe is a genie. But of course not the genie from Aladdin, it's a really evil genie who wants to kill you.
You are now entering the tombs of the undead.
And then you may have guessed it, but your special enemy in this level are these, like, mummy guys. And the good part about them is they don't actually move all that fast, so it does kind of help when you're trying to defeat them. If you have a lot of hordes of these guys, they're not like some of the zombies in some of the newer survival horror games who actually could run. But some of these better guys could walk a little bit quicker. But I'll say it once again, but I just love how these, a lot of the characters in this game look. They just have such a nice detailed look to them. And as you saw in this, basically in this whole playthrough, I never actually bought a single key. And you might ask yourself, after this level, why would they have you, like, buy more stuff? Well, it's because on the, before you defeat Scorn, there are still more areas you need to open locks. Plus, it's not always guaranteed that, like, you have all the runestones, or you might actually just want to go back and play some more, because just because you beat the game doesn't mean you have to, like, not play it ever again. You could just go back with some friends if you're now really leveled up character and, play some more of these levels over again. Because it's really cool showing off, like, some kid just starts the game and he's level 1. And here you are, you're like level 40 or level 51 or something, and he's like, oh my god, you're amazing. Will my character get like that? And you're like, yes, my son. Your character will get like this after leveling a lot. You feel like his Mr. Miyagi or something. And this is another one of those levels that's just kind of one of those, like, dirty looking levels, and it has kind of that, like, foreboding music. And then here, of course, is our Phoenix Familiar. And just like in all the other levels, the music kind of has that like spooky type tomb-like music. And the cool part about a lot of these music is they kind of have a remix of the Gauntlet theme in the background. Like, let's say their basic uptone is a new thing, but like a little bit of the background will have like a remix version of the Gauntlet theme, which I remember the Castle Stronghold doing that a lot. So it's kind of cool to be able to pick up like those sound cues. And that's one thing to always keep an eye out for, is just basically a pile of money sitting on the ground, because it looks like this weird gold pile and you don't always pick it up all the time. Especially when you have like areas that look as dirty as this. And that's a little cool thing, that when you step into the water you actually step down. That's a nice little touch. And yeah, I could remember when I was playing this, I was thinking to myself, I just need to find the end of this level so I can go defeat the genie and then finally get onto the real ending, if you will. And that's one of the many times that I accidentally shot a potion where I really didn't mean to do it, but I kind of didn't see it, so I ended up shooting it. And of course there I intentionally shot those red barrels from a distance so that they didn't hurt me. Because it's never fun, like, the worst times I've ever had is when I actually ended up shooting the barrels when you're too low on health, and then you can accidentally die sometimes, and that's never fun. And that's one thing to remember. I know I've mentioned this numerous times as well, but never insert too many coins, because if there's a credit in the bank, the guy will go join in anytime, because he's trying to tell other players that, hey, there's a credit, you can come and play with all these other guys here. But that's one thing to remember if you're actually ever playing this, is don't have an extra credit in there. Make sure you buy some health with it. And this is supposed to be like the same thing that you were seeing in the other level, that crazy looking energy field. Of course, this time it's just going down into a random hole, whereas last time it was going down into lava pit. And I always say it's a good thing that you have your power attacks and your magic, because there are so many times where you get literally swarmed by the enemies, and without those things, it would, suffice to say, be a lot more difficult. And the funny thing is, whenever I say the phrase "suffice to say," I always think of a video that somebody made online, which basically was, I don't know if it was every time they said it, but it was basically a bunch of times where characters from Star Trek Voyager said, suffice it to say, and they're just like all in a montage, so you get to see them like one after the other, and I just thought that was kind of funny that somebody actually went through the time to do such a thing. And the funny thing is, most of the actual occurrences are actually Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok in the show, saying suffice it to say, but there are a few times that other characters like Captain Janeway and the Doctor say it. And I always hated that when I'm trying to attack the enemies in front of me, but there's a bunch of enemies behind me all trying to attack me at once. Yeah, and that's one of those places where it's definitely good to have that power attack, the BFG. Now this is another really cool effect. I definitely like how this board can show the fog, because not all the hardware of the time could show like the real-time fog like that, and it actually looks pretty good. It doesn't look amazing by today's standards, but still really decent. And that was one of those, oh, I found the exit, this is good to finally be able to exit this level.
The Genie's Sanctum.
And now, of course, this is the boss of the desert area here.
Oh, sustenance.
I can remember when I had first seen this enemy, the way he does one of his attacks, he kind of swirls his sword. And I remember at the time, yeah, there it is. I can remember at the time,
Needs food.
it was in the Rob Zombie video for like the remixed version of Super Beast. There was some person who actually does like a twirly sword thing, and whenever I saw this, I thought of that, and if I recall correctly, at the time, I incorrectly called it his Dragula sword swipes. but it was really Super Beast was the video that it was on. And now that's one thing I find kind of weird. There's like really no music here, but I guess they figured with all the noise that the Genie was making, you wouldn't really like hear the music maybe. So in a way, it makes this boss fight a little bit less epic, if you will, because like I remember fighting the dragon in the first realm, the mountain. You had this really cool like music, which is like kind of this you're fighting, you have to really do your best to destroy this enemy type thing, but yeah, this doesn't have anything at all. I don't know if I'd made mention of it in any of my other videos, but of course the developer of Gauntlet Legends was Atari Games, and in the arcade, Atari Games published the arcade version, but the home versions were published by Midway, which, as I had made mention, was Nintendo 64, PlayStation, and then the Dreamcast version, which had some Dark Legacy features added to it, which the other versions did not have. And if I recall correctly, out of the original two versions that came out earliest, the Nintendo 64 was the one that everyone liked to say was closest to the arcade. Whereas the Dreamcast version was a bit of a departure. And I remember it being released a bit later than the other two consoles. Or at least when this game came out, the Dreamcast wasn't as like big of an adopted system. And I can remember when I actually had got my Dreamcast, it was one of the first games I had purchased. So it's like, oh wow, they released Gauntlet Legends on Dreamcast, and the upgrading graphics from the previous version that I had played before, which was the PlayStation version, was definitely noticeable, so it was good to see a better home version of this game that I loved so much from playing the arcade. And the actual wiki here has it that the Dreamcast version of Gauntlet Legends had many of the Gauntlet Dark Legacy features, such as many features from Gauntlet Dark Legacy, such as unlockable game features, kind of like your added characters like the Jester, the Knight, the Sorceress. I think the actual guy for the, let's see, the Jester was the Archer. The, Sorceress, of course, was the, Wizard. The Knight actually was the Valkyrie. I think the actual, warrior character was like the Jackal or something. But basically they were almost the same characters, but they actually had, different traits, and I think, like, for instance, the Sorcerers could attack a bit faster than the Wizard and stuff like that, so it wasn't like they were a night and day thing, but they were just, different renditions of the same characters. And of course, that is the desert realm of Gauntlet Legends in the arcade.
You have defeated the terrible genie and recovered his key. You have found all 3 runestones from this realm. Now that you have all 4 keys, go to the Altar of Scorn and banish him from the realm.
And I will see you later in the final video of the series where we look at the rest of the game. Of course, like usual, this is a great game. I highly recommend the arcade or console versions to anyone. See you later.